I, 32F, and my husband Jake, 35M, have been married for 8 years. Our life together started wonderfully. We bought our dream house, both had successful careers, and were planning to start a family soon. Jake especially was at the peak of his career at a prestigious law firm where he had worked for 10 years and was on track to make partner. The firm was started by his father's college friend, and everyone assumed Jake would follow in the founder's footsteps. Everything was perfect until last year when my father-in-law Tom, 62M, destroyed everything we had worked for. To understand how we got here, I need to explain some background about Tom. He immigrated to this country with nothing but a high school education and started working in construction. Through hard work and determination, he built his own moderately successful construction company that he ran for 30 years. He was incredibly proud of being self-made and never missed an opportunity to remind everyone about it. Family gatherings always included his lectures about hard work, integrity, and how the younger generation had it too easy. Tom was also the type of father who kept score of everything he did for his children. When Jake wanted to go to law school, Tom helped pay for it but made sure Jake never forgot about it. He also used his connection with his college friend to help Jake get his first job at the law firm. While Jake was grateful for the help, Tom held it over his head constantly, especially when he wanted something from Jake. Looking back, there were early warning signs that Tom's business was in trouble. 2 years ago, several new construction companies entered the market with more modern equipment and lower operating costs. Instead of adapting or scaling down, Tom's pride wouldn't let him admit he needed to change. He kept taking bigger and riskier contracts, trying to prove he could still compete with the younger companies. The situation came to a head last year when Tom approached Jake about helping with some legal paperwork for a major government contract. Jake was happy to help. He had always tried to be a good son and wanted to support his father. One evening after work, Jake was reviewing the bid documents when he noticed several major discrepancies in the financial statements. The numbers didn't add up, and there were questionable claims about the company's past performance and capabilities. When Jake confronted Tom about these issues, Tom dismissed his concerns, saying it was just creative accounting that everyone in the industry did to stay competitive. Jake spent hours trying to explain how this could be considered fraud and could result in criminal charges. Tom got defensive and angry, accusing Jake of being ungrateful and not supporting family when they needed him. He brought up paying for law school and getting Jake the job at the firm, saying Jake owed him this much. The arguments continued for weeks. Jake tried everything to reason with his father, offering to help him revise the bid legally, suggesting they look for smaller contracts, even offering to loan him money to upgrade his equipment. But Tom's pride wouldn't let him accept help from his son. He saw it as criticism of his business skills and kept insisting Jake just needed to sign off on the documents as they were. What Jake didn't know was that while they were having these arguments, Tom had already submitted several bids using forged copies of Jake's signature and law firm credentials. Jake only discovered this when another lawyer at the firm questioned him about a bid document he supposedly signed. Horrified, Jake immediately reported everything to the firm's ethics committee to protect himself. The subsequent investigation revealed that Tom had been doing this for nearly a year, using Jake's credentials to submit multiple fraudulent bids. The scandal hit the firm hard. Even though Jake had reported it himself and cooperated fully with the investigation, his reputation was severely damaged. Partners who had mentored him for years now avoided eye contact in the hallways. The final blow came when Tom's friend, the firm's founder, called Jake into his office. He said that while he personally believed Jake was innocent, the optics of keeping him at the firm were too problematic. The founder offered Jake the chance to resign instead of being fired, saying it would look better on his resume. Jake was devastated. He had worked 80-hour weeks for a decade, sacrificed countless evenings and weekends, missed family events and holidays, all building towards making partner. Now at 35, he was starting over at a much smaller firm with significantly lower pay and prestige. All because his father couldn't admit his business was failing and instead chose to drag his son down with him. Tom's construction business failed anyway within months. He lost several major contracts when his fraudulent bids were discovered, and clients started avoiding his company. He had to declare bankruptcy and sell most of his assets to pay off debts. My mother-in-law Mary, 58F, stuck by him through all this, even after discovering he had gambled away most of their retirement savings on risky business deals trying to keep the company afloat. Now, a year later, Tom has been diagnosed with a serious heart condition requiring expensive surgery. Their health insurance will only cover part of it. Mary calls us constantly, crying about how they can't afford the medical bills. She keeps saying that despite everything that happened with the business, Tom is still Jake's father and we need to help family in times of crisis. Jake's younger brother Steve, 28M, lives in another state and claims he can't contribute anything since he's still paying off student loans. So Mary expects us to cover the bulk of the costs, nearly $100,000. She says we're the only ones who can help since we're more financially stable, completely ignoring that we're still recovering from the career setback Tom caused and had to significantly downsize our lifestyle. The emotional manipulation has been relentless. Mary stops by unannounced with photo albums showing Jake's childhood memories with Tom. She brings up how Tom paid for Jake's college and helped him get his first job, conveniently forgetting how Tom later used that same job to commit fraud. Tom himself now calls Jake crying about how sorry he is and how he doesn't want to die with this rift between them. He claims he only did what he did because he was desperate to save the business and provide for his family. Jake is really struggling with guilt even though he knows his parents are manipulating him. Part of him still feels obligated to help his father despite the betrayal. I'm furious at how they're trying to emotionally blackmail him after everything Tom did. We've already depleted a lot of our savings adjusting to the lower income. Taking on massive medical debt would destroy the financial stability we're trying to rebuild. I told Mary firmly that we won't be paying anything given how Tom deliberately sabotaged Jake's career. She called me heartless and said that I was turning her son against his family. Tom's siblings have also been calling to berate us about abandoning family in their time of need. The whole situation is causing huge stress in our marriage as Jake feels torn between his parents and me. Update 1: The situation has spiraled into an even bigger mess than we imagined. Last week, we received a notice from the bank about being listed as references on a recent mortgage application. This confused us since we hadn't applied for any loans. After some digging, we discovered that Tom and Mary had actually remortgaged their house 6 months ago for $250,000. When Jake confronted his mother about this, she initially tried to claim it was for Tom's medical expenses. But the timing didn't add up since Tom wasn't even diagnosed with his heart condition until 3 months ago. After hours of questioning and Mary changing her story multiple times, she finally broke down and admitted the truth. Tom had convinced her to remortgage the house so he could invest in some cryptocurrency venture he found online. Someone he met at a local bar had told him about this amazing investment opportunity that could multiply their money in just a few months. The guy claimed to be some tech genius who had made millions in crypto and was offering to help others do the same. Despite everything that happened with his construction business, Tom's pride and desperation led him to believe he could outsmart the system again. He invested nearly all of the mortgage money into what turned out to be an obvious scam. The website disappeared overnight along with everyone's investments. Now they're at risk of losing their house too since they can't make the increased mortgage payments on just Mary's part-time retail job income. What makes this even more infuriating is that Mary knew about all of this. She knew they had lost the money months ago but still kept coming to us crying about needing help with medical bills. She kept guilt-tripping Jake about letting his father die while hiding the fact that they had already blown $250,000 on a get-rich-quick scheme. When confronted about her deception, she tried to justify it saying they were desperate and Tom really thought he could fix everything if the investment had worked out. But the revelations didn't stop there. Jake's cousin accidentally mentioned something about Steve's new lake house during a family call. This caught our attention since Steve, Jake's brother, had been claiming he couldn't help with their father's medical bills due to his student loan debt. Some quick social media searching revealed that Steve had recently bought a $600,000 vacation home at a popular lake resort. Jake called Steve demanding answers. Steve's attitude was completely dismissive. He admitted he had been lying about his financial situation because he simply didn't want to get involved in our parents' mess anymore. He said he had worked hard building his tech startup and wasn't going to waste his money cleaning up after our father's poor decisions. According to Steve, he had already given them enough money over the years and wasn't going to throw good money after bad. The hypocrisy of the situation is staggering. While Steve jets off to his lake house every weekend, posting photos of parties on his boat, he's perfectly fine letting his brother shoulder all the responsibility for their parents. He even had the nerve to tell Jake that he should just pay the medical bills since he makes good money at his new firm, completely ignoring that Jake had to take a massive pay cut because of their father's actions. The stress of all this has started taking a serious toll on Jake. He's developed severe anxiety and has trouble sleeping most nights. He lies awake worrying about his parents losing their house, about his father's health, about our own financial security. The lack of sleep is affecting his performance at the new job. His boss pulled him aside last week to express concern about his recent work quality and focus. We really can't afford for him to lose this job too. It was hard enough finding this position after the scandal at his old firm. Meanwhile, Tom's health has indeed been declining, and Mary has doubled down on her emotional manipulation tactics. She's been calling all the relatives telling them that Jake is willing to let his father die just to punish him over some work disagreement. She completely downplays Tom's fraudulent actions that destroyed Jake's career as just a simple mistake any father might make trying to save his business. She conveniently leaves out the part about them losing the house remortgage money in a crypto scam. The most frustrating part is how she's managed to turn most of the family against us. Tom's siblings and their spouses have been harassing us nonstop on social media, posting long rants about how cruel and heartless we are for abandoning family in their time of need. They keep commenting on old family photos, saying things like how sad it is that money has become more important to us than family. My own posts are being flooded with comments calling me a gold digger who turned their nephew against his loving parents. We've had to block most of the family on social media, but they keep finding ways to attack us. They've even started contacting our friends and colleagues, sharing their twisted version of events. The whole situation has become a nightmare that's affecting every aspect of our lives. Update 2: Everything came crashing down last week in the worst possible way. Jake was in an important meeting with a potential new client when Mary burst into his office unannounced. She had somehow convinced the receptionist she was there for an urgent family emergency. Before anyone could stop her, she started creating a hysterical scene in the middle of the office. She was sobbing loudly about how her husband was going to die because his own son was too selfish to help save his life. She kept screaming about how Jake was killing his father and would have to live with that guilt forever. The entire office could hear her, including Jake's colleagues and the potential client he was meeting with. Security had to physically escort her out of the building while she continued crying and screaming about her dying husband. Jake's new firm was understandably furious about this incident. The potential client walked out during the chaos and later emailed saying they would not be requiring the firm's services. Jake's managing partner called him in for a serious discussion about keeping personal drama away from the workplace. He warned Jake that any more incidents like this could jeopardize his position at the firm. After Mary's meltdown, Jake finally reached his breaking point. He decided to do a deep dive into his parents' finances, determined to understand the full scope of their deception. He spent hours going through old records and documents, and what he discovered was shocking. It turns out Tom had received a $400,000 insurance payout 3 years ago when their old house was severely damaged in a storm. Tom never told anyone about this money, not even his children. He had always claimed the insurance barely covered the repairs. But Jake found the original settlement documents showing the full payout amount. Instead of using this money to save his failing business or secure their retirement, Tom had secretly gambled most of it away at local casinos. Bank records showed regular large cash withdrawals followed by visits to casinos in neighboring states. When Jake confronted Mary about this discovery, she initially acted shocked and claimed she had no idea about the insurance money. She tried to paint herself as another victim of Tom's poor decisions. But her story quickly fell apart when Jake found old credit card statements and shopping receipts. In the months following the insurance payout, Mary had gone on several expensive shopping sprees, buying designer bags, jewelry, and even a luxury cruise for herself and her sisters. The level of deception was staggering. While they were blowing through hundreds of thousands in insurance money, they were still asking Jake for regular financial help, claiming they were struggling to make ends meet. They had been lying to everyone about being responsible with money while making reckless decisions for years. Even now, they were trying to manipulate Jake into paying massive medical bills while hiding their history of financial irresponsibility. What made everything worse was finding emails between Mary and Steve from that time period. While Steve now claims he never knew about any family financial issues, the emails showed he was fully aware of the insurance payout and their parents' spending habits. He had actually advised them on how to hide the money from Jake because he knew his brother would try to make them use it responsibly. All this time, we thought Mary was just enabling Tom's poor decisions. Now we realize she was an active participant in the deception. She wasn't just covering for Tom's mistakes, she was making her own selfish choices while letting her son shoulder the burden of supporting them. Now they expect Jake to sacrifice his own family's financial security to bail them out yet again, as if all their past lies and manipulation never happened. Update 3: After weeks of intense discussions and many sleepless nights, Jake finally made the difficult decision to completely cut contact with his parents. The constant emotional manipulation was destroying his mental health and putting severe strain on our marriage. We could see our relationship starting to crack under the pressure of his family's toxic behavior. The final straw came when we discovered Mary had been spreading vicious rumors about me at my workplace. She somehow got my work email address and sent a long message to my entire department claiming I was a controlling wife who had turned her son against his dying father for money. Thankfully, my supervisor was understanding, but it was deeply humiliating having my private family drama exposed to my colleagues. We took decisive action after that incident. We changed our phone numbers, blocked their email addresses, and moved to a different neighborhood on the other side of the city. We also had our lawyer send them a formal cease and desist letter warning them about potential legal consequences if they continued harassing us at our workplaces. A month after we went no contact, we heard through Steve that Tom had gotten his surgery anyway. It turns out Mary's brother had sold some valuable property he owned in Florida and agreed to pay for the entire procedure. They never actually needed our money that urgently, it was just another manipulation tactic trying to force us to resume contact and regain control over Jake. The irony of the situation hit hard. All those months of guilt-tripping, emotional blackmail, and public humiliation were completely unnecessary. They had other options for funding the surgery but chose to torture Jake psychologically instead, perhaps as punishment for him not enabling their previous financial schemes. Jake's new firm has been surprisingly supportive after learning the full story of his father's fraud and his mother's harassment. His managing partner even pulled him aside last week to discuss a potential path to partnership. It would take another 3 to 4 years of hard work, but knowing there's a future here has helped Jake regain his professional confidence. We've been slowly rebuilding our lives and our savings without the constant drama and guilt trips from his family. Jake started sleeping better, his anxiety has improved significantly, and we're finally able to focus on our own goals again. We're even starting to revisit our plans about having children, something we had put on hold during all this chaos. Steve still updates us occasionally about their parents, though we've made it clear we don't want to hear unless it's truly urgent. Apparently, Tom made a full recovery from the surgery but hasn't changed his behavior at all. He spends his time badmouthing Jake to anyone who'll listen, painting himself as the victim of an ungrateful son who abandoned him in his time of need. He conveniently leaves out the part about destroying Jake's career and gambling away their insurance money. Mary has been telling family members that I must have some dirt on Jake and am blackmailing him to stay away from his family. Some relatives who initially sided with them have started reaching out to apologize after seeing their continued pattern of lies and manipulation. But we're maintaining firm boundaries with everyone who enabled their behavior. Looking back, going no contact was the best decision we could have made. The peace and stability we've gained in our lives since cutting ties has been worth all the family drama. We're finally free to focus on our own future without being dragged down by their toxic behavior and endless demands.